Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we are tackling some pretty interesting ideas. Well, I found it interesting anyway. They come from Political Ferret. He's that European YouTuber, you know, the one always kind of poking at the edges of, like, political discussions and stuff. We go through a piece of his writing. It's called Der Mensch ist nicht die Quelle aller Probleme. That translates to, well, you know, man is not the source of all problems. Pretty catchy title, right? Kind of makes you think. Are we always too quick to blame ourselves for everything?
Yeah, it really makes you question that assumption that we all have. You know, the one where humans are at the center of everything good or bad. He kind of flips that around. Political Ferret, I mean. Like he's saying we forget how much nature itself really shapes the problems that we face.
Well, let's get into that a bit. Political Ferret has this really powerful example he uses to, like, make this point. It's the need to work for food. Like, how many times have we heard people complain about, you know, oh, I got to work to eat, like it's capitalism's fault or whatever. But Political Ferret makes this point about how
it's just nature. Like food scarcity is just a natural constraint.
exactly
We're biological creatures. We need to eat. And getting food takes work. It's not like some human invention.
right. It's like we're trying to blame the system when really it's just the reality of, you know, existing.
Yeah.
What if we tried to invent a world where we didn't need to sleep anymore? Just because it was inconvenient, it wouldn't work.
Exactly. We can't ignore the realities of, you know, our existence. And Political Ferret goes even further with this, applying it to the way we view politics. And he makes this comparison between political ideology and religion.
Whoa, okay. I did not see that one coming. What's the connection?
So he's saying, like, when people say politicians can solve resource scarcity through legislation, that's basically the same as, you know, ancient people praying to gods for sustenance.
Oh, wow.
We've just replaced divine intervention with political intervention.
So instead of blaming the gods for famine, we blame politicians for a bad economy. Interesting way to think about it.
It really is.
But, I mean, does it really hold up?
I think he makes a pretty strong case. Think about the way politicians talk, like in their campaigns. They promise to, like, save the nation, rescue the economy. It sounds a lot like what you'd hear in a religious context.
You're right. There's a lot of passion in politics, too, and conflict, just like with religion.
Yeah.
So is that why politics is so polarized today?
I think that's one of the big questions that his work is getting at. Are
Yeah.
we having real debates based on facts? Or are we just clinging to our political beliefs with,
No.
you know, like a religious type of faith? And if so, what does that mean for actually solving these big problems?
Yeah, that's a bit scary when you think about it. Like, we're trying to solve real-world problems using a system that's based on belief instead of reason.
Yeah.
That leads us to another one of Political Ferret's ideas about where humans fit in, you know, with everything.
Yeah, he talks about this conflict between the people who see humanity as part of nature, like subject to its laws and limitations, and the people who think that we're, or should be, I guess, above nature.
We're always fighting that battle, aren't we? Accepting our place versus trying to go beyond it. You can see that everywhere. Climate change, gene editing, are we in control?
Yeah.
Or just another species along for the ride?
And this is where things get even more interesting with Political Ferret. He's saying this conflict isn't just philosophical or political, it's like a spiritual or religious conflict.
Okay, hold on. Spiritual religious conflict.
Yeah.
I need a bit more on that.
So basically he's arguing what we believe about humanity and nature, like whether we're part of it or above it, that shapes our whole worldview.
It's like a lens.
Yeah.
We see everything through.
Right. It affects how we think about economics and social values and even our own personal ethics.
So it's bigger than just politics. It's about how we see our place in the universe.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that politics as religion thing.
Right.
Think about it. Religions try to answer the big questions. Why are we here? What's our purpose? What happens after we die? And political ideologies kind of do the same thing.
Especially the really hardcore ones.
Yeah, they give us a framework for understanding the world.
So if these beliefs are, like, so deep, is it even possible to find common ground?
It definitely makes things more complicated. It's like trying to have a conversation about building a house, but we can't agree on the foundation.
Okay, so how do we even start to bridge that gap if this is a spiritual battle? Are we just stuck fighting forever?
That's the big question, isn't it? Political Ferret doesn't give us any easy answers, but by framing the conflict this way, he makes us consider something.
What's that?
That maybe our disagreements aren't just about facts and logic, but about deep-seated beliefs that are hard to change.
It's like we're arguing about the color of the sky, but we're actually looking at different skies.
Perfect analogy.
We might be using the same words, but they mean totally different things.
Exactly.
So if we accept that, what does it mean for how we approach political and social issues? Are we doomed to just fight forever?
Not necessarily. It might sound pessimistic at first, but I think there's also some hope in Political Ferret's view. By recognizing the spiritual side of these conflicts, we can move beyond just arguing about policies and ideologies.
And start to look at the beliefs behind those positions.
Exactly.
So instead of trying to win an argument, we should try to understand each other.
That's the idea. There might not be one right answer, but a range of views based on our own experiences and beliefs.
So that's the first step to having better conversations.
More productive and compassionate ones.
It's like we need to talk about the nature of reality itself before we can even talk about how we want to live in it.
It's a big challenge.
But it seems like a necessary one.
If we want to solve the problems facing humanity.
And Political Ferret isn't shying away from that.
He's saying these conflicts are a deep part of being human.
It's a tough truth. That maybe some of these conflicts are inevitable, just part of who we are. But even if that's true, doesn't mean we can't change.
I think that's what he wants us to think about. He doesn't really say if he thinks we can resolve these conflicts or not, but he definitely suggests that understanding them is like the first step.
So maybe instead of trying to change each other's minds,
Yeah.
we just try to live with the fact that we see things differently.
Yeah. And maybe that's the key to moving forward, not erasing differences, but understanding them.
Okay, so let's bring this back to our listeners. We've talked about some pretty heavy stuff today. The role of nature in our problems, politics being like religion, and this conflict over humanity and nature. It's a lot to take in.
Definitely a lot to think about.
So, if Political Ferret's right, and these conflicts are just part of being human, what does that mean for you? How do you approach these issues? Does it change the way you think about things?
It's worth considering.
Yeah. And if you're interested in Political Ferret's ideas, check him out on YouTube, watch his videos, read his stuff, and make up your own mind.
Don't forget to think critically. Don't just believe everything you hear. Question things. Analyze. Come to your own conclusions.
That's what it's all about. And most importantly, stay curious. There are so many interesting ideas out there. Until next time.
Keep diving.